Expectations are difficult to deal with, Krausey. If you're not, if you can't live up to them, they're very difficult to deal with.
Football 24/7 on a Monday, the day after the loss at MetLife Stadium, with NFL insider John McMullen across the JAKIB Media YouTube network. Johnny Mac, there's a lot of ground to cover on this Monday, including your deep dive. But I want to first get the words from you following the Nick Sirianni press conference, specific about Jalen Hurts and his injury, and then we'll pick it up from there.
Yeah, Jalen hurt his ankle. For people that didn't notice, when he got sacked, I think it was the Giants' lone sack of the game, came up a little bit limping and clearly was affected by it. And Nick kind of said we're going to have to wait till Wednesday to get sort of an update. I do get a feel that it's a little bit of gamesmanship. The Eagles have been big on that this year when players going to be questionable or something of that nature. They try to keep it close to the vest. I do expect him to play next week, but it does bring up an interesting point, because I think we've talked about this all year, really. What is the real goal of this season? Trying to get the 7th spot in the NFC, or trying to evaluate Jalen Hurts. And, from a front office perspective, it might be nice to take a look at this offense with Gardner Minshew just from an evaluation process. But I don't want to even give an inkling of that's the way Nick Sirianni's thinking. Nick Sirianni wants to win these games, and he wants Jalen Hurts to play. I do think there's a little bit of a disconnect, because I think, you could learn some things. If a different quarterback was in there, I think it would give you a clearer picture of what the issues are with this offense, and if they're directly related to the quarterback or they're directly related to the game planner and the play caller, to be honest.
John, how did Nick describe the ankle injury as something that he thought was, I don't even know if they ever even speculate, but was it something he thought was serious, something that's going to be evaluated, something that affected him at all after the play, any of that stuff?
No, he's just sore. It's not anything serious. It's probably, a lightly sprained ankle, but, I think it was Les Bowen we had on Birds 365 mentioned, at some point, we always talk about injuries, and people think of injuries like Jack Driscoll, for instance, who's going to be put on injured reserve, going to be out for the season. There's also banged up. Guys play through injuries. You saw it with Jason Kelce. You see it consistently with Jason Kelce. Jalen Hurts, as I said, I firmly believe he's going to play Sunday at MetLife Stadium. That's not a mistake. The Eagles are going right back up the turnpike to face the Jets. So MetLife back-to-back weeks. But, you play 17 games, you're going to get banged up. And the way he plays, the strength of his game is mobility. You take away some of that mobility, he can play the game, but can he play it the same way? I think that's the bigger question.
Well, if you were anywhere within an earshot of Philadelphia Sports Talk Radio today, the debate, and it still goes on as we do this report here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, is Nick Sirianni to blame? Is Jalen Hurts to blame? Is Jalen Reagor to blame on yesterday's loss to the New York Giants. Now, I don't necessarily know as a professional, an NFL insider, if you would check any one of those boxes, but I would love for you to kind of individually weigh in with your own assessment of all three, starting with the head coach. Did he call a good game? How was his play calling? Did he do anything different that you noticed and that you questioned him on either last night or today?
I think the only noticeable difference was the targets for Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. Remember, since they kind of shifted offensively from the early season RPO-driven offense to the more heavy run-driven offense, they've been running the ball very effectively. They continued to run the ball very effectively, over 200 yards again. So that part was not an issue. The only difference was their inability to get the football to Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. Now, it was pretty clear to us when we were there. The Giants were they were trying to take away Dallas Goedert. They were bracketing Dallas Goedert, especially on third downs. They got an indication that the Eagles wanted to go that direction, and they did a really, really good job. So then, and that's what I asked Nick at his press conference this afternoon. I said, what'd you see? Why didn't they get the football? And he again said, game planning starts with 88-6, and that's Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith. When it comes to the passing game, obviously. So why didn't they get the football? And there's your question, They're first in the progressions. They're 1A and 1B, typically, especially when you don't throw the football a heck of a lot. Is Jalen not making the right decisions, not getting the ball out quickly? And that's something, obviously, he's not going to go on record with. I think that's the issue. And we'll see. We'll see as we continue to move forward. But one thing I noted on Birds 365 this morning with Jody McDonald is, this is what I've been saying. You can run the football. You can win. But the margin of error is dramatically smaller. And yesterday was a perfect example. You run for 200 yards, you scored 7 points. Why'd you score 7 points? Nate Herbig, touchdown called back on a holding call. Interceptions, obviously. We go on, drop footballs by Jalen Reagor, on and on and on. When you play something so close to the best, so tight to the best, Boston Scott's fumble, another perfect example. Look, if you tighten all those things up, Jalen Hurts makes the right decision at the goal line. They just kicked Jake Elliott field goals. You think about the Quez Watkins interception. You think about the Boston Scott interception when they threw the football to those two guys. If you make better decisions, just kick Jake Elliott field goals, you're up 6-3 at halftime instead of down 3-0. If Boston Scott holds on to the football, the Eagles probably go in and score. If Jalen Reagor, they win the football game. But the point is, the margin of error is small. Everything's got to go right. Everything's got to go right. And yesterday, everything didn't go right. And you lost the football game, even though you ran for 200 yards.
John, is there an answer to the question why Jalen Reagor was targeted on those two plays instead of Devontae Smith? I think it was John Clark that pushed out
he was not
post
open,
on Twitter. No, it pushed out on Twitter that Devontae was so upset he threw his helmet or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. Devontae went up to head coach Nick Sirianni the play before. I don't know what was said, but if he's your number one receiver, isn't it make sense that he would get the first crack?
Well, number one, he was the first progression on the play. So the play was designed to go to DeVonta Smith. And they ran double crossing routes in the middle of the field. Quez Watkins didn't do a good job with his route, number one. Then there's a lot of people who, and this is an example why you don't pull something off the game tape or you pull something off a picture. First of all, I think people say, oh, he's open. Well, by that point, you have to understand where the progression's going. Okay. You have to understand where the time is on the clock. There's 25 seconds on the clock. There's no timeouts. It's 4th and 10. You got to get you got to get 10 yards. DeVonta was open for a split second coming off the line of scrimmage. Again, it's not been the strength of Jalen Hurts to make quick decisions and get the ball out of his hands quickly. But you can make an argument he should have got the ball out of his hands. I don't know if he gets 10 yards because James Bradbury is tracking him. So that's number one. Game's over if you don't get the first down. That's number one. Now, I think where people got a little bit upset is later in the pattern as DeVonta turned up field. It looked like there was a really, really tight window throw that, Aaron Rodgers could make. I don't know if Jalen Hurts could make it. And then the second part, the TV didn't show the safety over the top. So the safety over the top would have closed very quickly, even if it was a completion. Bradbury and Nick Sirianni mentioned that's a veteran corner. He knows how to play. He flattened out his coverage to make it a more difficult throw for the quarterback. Had to be a touch throw over Bradbury. Very difficult throw. Again, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Drew Brees when he was still playing, probably no problem. Jalen Hurts, that's a tough throw. Bottom line. And then as he turns upfield again, fans couldn't see the safety over the top, and he's going to close very quickly. Even if it's completed at that point, obviously you might have the first down, you got to run up, you got to spike the ball, and who knows what happens from there. But at the time, Jalen Hurts had already moved on. He had already started looking at other progressions because he didn't get the football out quickly enough. This is the part that I don't understand because Jalen Hurts did a tremendous job of keeping himself alive in the pocket, allowing Jalen Reagor to get up, made a good throw, really good throw. Receiver dropped the football. When you get that opportunity on 4th and 10, wouldn't have won the game, probably would have been at the 1 yard line, but it would have had an opportunity to rush up, spike the football. You're not getting a better look. Receivers got to catch the football. So I don't understand the angst on that particular play other than from Jalen Hurts' standpoint, other than he doesn't get the ball out of his hands quickly enough, but you should already know that by this point. That's not a strength of his game. What you did see is the strength of his game, the ability to extend the play, the ability to use the scramble drill for his receivers to get open down the field. Everybody did everything right except the wide receiver didn't catch the football.
Was it as simple as the way Jalen Reagor described it after the game last night. And I think you mentioned this on the live post-game show with D. Gunn, Farzetta, Mark Farzetta, and Devin Caney. Was it as simple as he just dropped the football? Yeah. Or was it, or is it, John, that he is not as good as we think he's supposed to be?
Well, that second question, it depends on who you're asking. I mean, he's not as good as anybody. If they think he's good, he's not good. He's the worst wide receiver 2 in the NFL, if you want to call him that. If you want to call Quez Watkins wide receiver 2, Quez Watkins is probably the worst in the NFL, and Jalen would be among the worst third wide receivers in the NFL, Jalen Reagor. People got to stop talking about his pedigree. They got to stop talking about him being a first-round pick. They got to stop comparing him to Justin Jefferson. He's not good enough, and he shouldn't be playing. And the only reason he is playing is because the Eagles don't have alternatives. And Nick Sirianni was asked flat out today, should you bench Jalen Reagor? And he said he's not going to bench Jalen Reagor because he gives us the best chance to win. What he's saying is not that he gives them a good chance to win. He's just better than Greg Ward and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. That's what he's saying. The Eagles haven't benched Jalen Reagor because they don't have anybody else. That's the bottom line.
Whew. I guess one of those upcoming draft picks in the 2022 NFL
no, they're
draft.
Not taking a, they're not taking a wide receiver.
Dare I say another receiver?
No, they are not taking a receiver in the first round. They will go out and sign a receiver in free agency, a veteran receiver who knows how to play. I think this organization is done with these young receivers who are learning on the fly, and they don't have a Jeff Stoutland at wide receiver. Coach, not to dismiss Aaron Moorhead, but I'll put Nick Sirianni in this as well. Look, his expertise is supposed to be wide receiver. They aren't getting these guys up to speed and ready to play, with the exception of Devontae Smith. It's not good enough. They need a veteran presence. I've been mentioning this since the summer. They needed a veteran presence. You can't get one now. Now you got to wait for the offseason. But they will get a veteran receiver in free agency to team up with Devontae Smith. They will.
John, in the context of that statement, how fair is it to Jalen Hurts if this is the hand he's been dealt and he's forced to play? 2 of his 3 receivers are flat out not good enough.
Well, it's not great, but you do have to put Dallas Goedert in the mix and understand, tight end is part of it, and he's really good, and Devontae is on his way to being really good. But one thing Nick also said when I asked him the question, you can't force the ball to Devontae Smith all the time. You can't force it to Dallas Goedert all the time. So Patrick Graham is the Giants defensive coordinator. He had a good game plan to take those 2 guys away as much as possible, and force the other guys to beat them. They had the opportunity and they didn't do it. Simple as that.
Is there when they bracket Dallas Goedert, what's the counter to that move. What's the adjustment by Nick Sirianni to get him open, to get him the football?
Number one, look, it's you don't want to just, it's a fine line. You want to get, and Nick always says you want to get, on his call sheets, I'll give you a little inside information. He's got little boxes of plays for certain players. The two biggest boxes are for 6 and 88, as he says, which are Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. So there are times you want to just call something to get Devontae Smith involved or get Dallas Goedert involved. However, if somebody is intent on taking away someone, in this case, I think it was Dallas Goedert more than anything else. I think that was the Giants' game plan. You can do it. I mean, you can bracket people, and that's what they did, especially on third downs. That's when it really, I guess my answer to your original question would be to try to get Dallas involved on first down or second down, because the Giants weren't going to allow it on third down. But when you try to take, and these are, whether it was Jerry Rice back in the day or Randy Moss or whatever great receiver you want to talk about, if you're trying to take those guys away, it's where the John Taylors and the Chris Carters would step up and kill you. The Eagles don't have that. The Eagles don't have that. I don't know how many ways you can say it. Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor aren't good enough, period. End of sentence. And when you look around this league and you look at all the receivers in this league, it's very, very disappointing that not only can't the Eagles find complementary receivers, they have no depth as well to try and exchange. Okay, so in other words, you see Jalen Reagor struggling mightily. You get asked the question, if the Eagles had an alternative, he would be benched. They don't have an alternative, so they keep running him out there. They have bad when we talk about the Eagles' offensive line, and rightfully so, and we give them credit, Jack Driscoll's gone now. Now you're down to your third right guard. It's probably going to be Nate Herbig. Maybe it's even Suo-Peta. Guess what? They're going to be competent. They're not going to be good. They're not going to be Brandon Brooks. They're not even going to be Jack Driscoll, but they're going to be competent. We can say the exact opposite at the wide receiver position. They don't have competency with the starters, never mind the backups. That's an issue.
Football 24/7 with NFL insider John McMullen across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, all presented by Stateside Vodka. John, just one quick sidebar opinion from you. Is Nelson Aguilar a better receiver today versus when he was a Philadelphia Eagle?
I haven't seen him play consistently enough to really give you that answer. Certainly was last year. Nelson's issues were always about confidence, about, he's not naturally great at tracking the football. Never had great hands, always open, tremendously athletic, just not consistent enough. I've seen enough of him play to know he's still not consistent. I saw him drop a big pass in New England. Is he better than he was here? Probably, because here he was expected to be a first-round pick. Here he was expected to be a number one receiver, very similar to Jalen Reagor. Maybe Jalen Reagor can go somewhere else. Remember, he was regarded as a bust here. Now he goes to the Raiders, he goes to the Patriots. He's not the guy. He's not the guy that was supposed to turn around the wide receiver corps. He's just a guy. And there's no pressure. You can be more comfortable. You can fit in as a role player. He's not a failed first round pick in those cities. I would imagine when Jalen Reagor leaves Philadelphia, wherever he goes next, he's going to be better than he was here, because everybody's not going to be saying, oh, look what Justin Jefferson's doing. That city, whatever city it's going to be, is not going to care that he was taken one spot ahead of Justin Jefferson. They are only going to care is, oh, can Jalen Reagor be a third or fourth receiver for us? Can he be a role player for us? No expectations. Expectations are difficult to deal with, Krausey. If you can't live up to them, they're very difficult to deal with.
Good stuff from NFL insider John McMullen. I did want to ask you about Jason Kelce. I know that when we did our short halftime report from MetLife Stadium yesterday, at that point, it appeared at least that Kelce would not get back into the game. But Jason Kelce's Jason Kelce. And he came back into the game and he played. What do you know? I mean, what was the extent of his injury? And is it something that could linger as the week starts to move forward, where come Wednesday or Thursday, there's a legitimate concern? Or is it business as usual for Kelce?
Well, knowing Jason as well as I do, he's going to play. So, and he was able to get back in that game. He was clearly lobbying to get back in that game. The Eagles were trying to keep him on the sideline. And it's lucky they did, because he came back in the game, and then Jack Driscoll got hurt, and Nate Herbig had to go in at right guard. So if you can imagine, if you lose Kelce and Driscoll in the same game, it would have been even a bigger disaster. But yeah, I've no doubt Jason's going to try to play. We'll see. Very similar. Nick gave very similar updates on Jason Kelce, Jordan Howard, even Jalen Hurts. We'll have more information on Wednesday from the Eagles' perspective. But yeah, as good as that offensive line has been, remember, I was telling Jody this. Jody's was ripping Nate Herbig at center. Remember, the Eagles, Nate Herbig is essentially their fourth center. Jason Kelce, Landon Dickerson was drafted to be the backup center and the backup interior lineman, but then Isaac Seumalo got hurt. Well, first it was Brandon Brooks, so first he had to play right guard, then he had to move to left guard when Isaac Seumalo got hurt. If Isaac didn't get hurt, and say Kelce's they kept Dickerson at right guard, and Isaac didn't get hurt, he would move to center, because he's more of a natural center. So the point is, when you get all the way down to that point, you still have competency. That's what I was talking about in the offensive line. It's pretty damn good. And you're going to see it again. This will be the fourth right guard, from Brandon Brooks to Landon Dickerson to Jack Driscoll, and that's going to be Nate Herbig or Sua Opeta. Other teams in this league can't deal with that. Could you imagine Quez Watkins to Greg Ward to John Hightower down to the fourth receiver, maybe Deion Kane or Keyshawn Johnson? These are names that the average Eagles fan doesn't even know. That's how much depth they have on the offensive line.
Good stuff today from John McMullen, Football 24/7, across the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, all presented by Stateside Vodka. It certainly will, Johnny Mac, be an interesting week in the city of Philadelphia as we get ready for or look ahead to another trip up the turnpike to MetLife Stadium before that very late in the year bye week the following week. And I don't know whether that bye week is good or not. I guess it's good. It's late in the year, awful late in the year, but perhaps it will be timely for this football team. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, remember, they came into that Giants game really healthy compared to most teams, certainly compared to the Giants, who were really banged up. And now the Eagles came out of it a little bit more banged up, certainly, than they were. And now we're talking about Jordan Howard was only the real injury of note. Now we're talking about Jason Kelce. Jack Driscoll's got to go on injured reserve. He's down for the year. The quarterback's banged up. So, yeah, that bye is going to be helpful. No question about it.
Good stuff. By the way, Johnny Mac, real quick, I wanted to ask you that one touchdown pass in the end zone. I think it was Greg Ward who dropped that football. Was that a drop or was that too much of a bullet from Jalen Hurts?
Both. It was too much of a bullet, no question. And despite Jody's protest, he's the biggest Greg Ward fan in the world. You get your hands on it. You got to bring in the football. Look, great receivers make that catch. That's the problem. The Eagles don't have great receivers, bottom line.
That's the exclamation point on Football 24/7 today with NFL insider John McMullen. As John likes to say, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time. See you next time, everybody. Thanks, Johnny Mac.
Thanks, Russ.